We have a surprise guest. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Michael, right?
Yes.
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, we are joined by Michael Averi, who our faithful regular listeners may remember that he was in a month or two ago with the community college speaking about his success through, what was the name of the program again?
The Real World Classroom, Sean Nixon's graphic design program.
Yeah, just stay on the mic, yeah. And yes, that's right. But now, because you brought some information in about your motivational speaking business, I
Yes.
thought Chris actually called me last night and said you're going to stop in. I don't know where Chris is. it's the Burns and Rylands minus the Burns hour, 2 hours this morning. But welcome.
Thank
you. Well, I don't mean to get personal, but you did mention it in your literature that you had a pretty tough time growing up.
Yeah, it was a very rough childhood. From the very beginning, both my parents were alcoholics and drug addicts, and it was a very abusive relationship that they had. And it just kind of snowballed after that. My mom and I were homeless because she finally got the courage to break up with my father. So, we lived in homeless shelters. We lived on couches, and we even lived in a car for a while. And, she finally got a place, and it was essentially the ghetto, just for lack of a better term. It was the projects.
Well, rundown area?
Yeah, very rundown area. One of my hobbies while waiting for the school bus was to color coordinate the crack vials.
Oh, and make the rainbow in the gutter.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's... Man.
And, it's unfortunate when I actually got a hold of my records, I found out that one of the drugs that my mom was addicted to was heroin. Wow. So it was difficult to learn that. I always knew she smoked weed a lot, but I never knew the extent of her drug addictions.
Yeah, that's about as heavy duty as you can get.
Yeah. And then she
now,
met a guy.
You just said school bus. That's a good thing that you were able to get to school somewhat during this, period of instability.
Yes.
Sadly, a lot of kids, the younger, the less likely are to get to school. I know that's a big problem with, with the homelessness in America affecting, keeping children out of schools a lot, and that's terrible.
Yeah,
terrible doesn't it doesn't even begin to touch how sad that fact is. But
yeah, I definitely consider myself one of the lucky ones, considering everything that I've gone against.
Now, is this in the locally, or
that
Ulster County area that you grew up in? Or
no, I was originally born in the Bronx.
Okay,
and then we moved up to Westchester County. And we lived there for a while. That's where we lived in the projects.
Yeah. Well, people, upstate, people hear Westchester and they think of a few gated, rich communities around golf courses or something. And it's not. All of Westchester is not happy suburbs and rich folk.
No,
There's
not at all.
Pretty gritty. Down by the water. Well, I can't think of the name of the town. Down along the water. Parts of New
Rochelle, Yonkers.
It's pretty.
Yeah,
it's as urban as any part of the Bronx or Brooklyn, and gritty. So, I'm merely saying this to convey the gravity of some of the local listeners who may not be too familiar with how rough it can be. And
yeah, it was definitely a rough area growing up. And actually, the school that I went to wasn't a traditional school. I was diagnosed with severe ADD. Wow. So this was actually a school specifically for children with those disabilities, and it was, you got to remember, this is the 80s now, so things were a lot different than they are today. Yeah. There was actually a padded room that they put the kids in once they went crazy.
When they started flipping out. Wow.
Yep. So I was given high doses of Ritalin and then just put into, a classroom, and then when the Ritalin wore off, they'd put me in a bouncy room.
Yeah. Oh,
and then they would send me home. And then, so my mom got a job working at a deli, and she met this biker-looking truck driver. And so they came in, and they were flirting, and she wrote her name and number on his sandwich wrapper. And that man later became my stepfather. And we did not get along at all. We butted heads from the very beginning. He was very militaristic. It was, when I say jump, you say how high as you're on your way up.
Was he ex-military?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And his thought process was children should be seen and not heard. So it was a very difficult relationship.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Push-ups were a form of punishment for everything. There were times where, we went to a party and I did something that he didn't approve of. So when we got home, I had to do 1,000 push-ups before I went to bed.
Good Lord.
Yeah, he said, you're either going to be strong with your mind or you're going to be strong with your body. That was his
mantra.
Yep.
Wow, jeez.
So the turn for the worse, or better, depending on how you look at it, was him and a group of friends decided to go to a strip club one day. And they left me and another kid in the backseat of the car while they were inside. So right next to the strip club was a hotel. And I decided, hey, let's throw rocks on the patio. Well, sure enough, I broke one of the windows. The cops came. I was like, no, I didn't do it. And obviously they knew I did it. So he said, don't worry about it. I'll handle it. He'll pay for it. So at that time, my mom was working at Monticello Raceway. So she had brought home a harness whip as a present for me. Well, my stepfather decided that would be the best thing to do to discipline me.
Used a buggy whip.
Yep.
Oh,
So, ironically, the very next day, I had a physical in school.
And
so they took, I take
they
my shirt
saw-
off. They saw the marks on my back.
I mean, that's like lashes. That's like medieval freaking,
Yeah, it was.
whipping,
It was brutal. And so I went right into foster care.
Wow.
And I spent 3.5 years in and out of foster care. I was in 10 different homes during that time.
3.5 years. Wow. How old were you at this time?
This time we're talking 9 to 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
In like the most, awkward, you're junior high, trying to
school
forge your name and your social, trying to become a person, in a community, and you're getting moved around. Did you have to switch schools a lot?
Oh, constantly.
Yep.
I think in a total, I was in 12 different schools.
Oh, man.
In 9th grade alone, I was in 3 completely different school districts. Yeah. And it was tough.
Yeah.
It was very tough.
Not knowing where you're going to be living in the week to week almost, you know?
Yep. Some families, they couldn't deal with me because, I was lashing out because I was pulled from my home. I was separated from my mom. I was a difficult kid to deal with.
Angry, I'm sure.
Very angry. And then some of them couldn't deal with my mom because she was very manipulative. And, there was one particular family that they were great. They considered me one of their own children. I loved living with them, but he worked for IBM. And this is when IBM did their first round of massive layoffs.
Yep.
So because he didn't have that nice salary, he couldn't afford to have the foster kids anymore. So he had to get rid of us.
That's sad. But.
Yeah, it was very sad. And I jumping forward a lot here, my wife was the one who said, listen, you have a message and you need to get your message out to people. So we decided to look up my foster care records. And I was shocked. I mean, my file is...
you probably couldn't even remember some of those
shuffles. I didn't remember. I thought I was only in 5 foster homes. I was in, way more than that.
Jeez. Yeah, when you're young, it's trauma. You're traumatized. But I just want to say, we're here with Michael Oliveri, a motivational speaker, and he is telling us some of his backstory, which is remarkable to see what a compassionate and articulate and inspirational guy. I mean, I'm not trying to flatter you or anything, but
I am blushing.
It's all a little bit. If you can see, face the camera and you can see. But this is a call-in show, 331-9255. But I just wanted to get that out there for our listeners. So.
Sure.
But if you're, I imagine shuffling around, seasonal. Each time you're moving, you're probably shedding items. Stuff gets lost in the shuffle.
Oh, absolutely.
Clothing and toys and possessions and.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are just unfortunate memories. That's all I have left at this point. I have one photo album of my entire existence up until probably age 25, from birth to 25, and there's just sporadic pictures here and there. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. And
So-
now, well, on a side now with the digital photographs,
Yes.
there's hardly any. If you lose your phone, you lose all the pictures. I think there's a lot to be said for having a photo album. That's probably one of your most precious items. I
Oh
would
yeah,
imagine.
one of my most cherished items for sure.
Yeah. Now, how obviously, depending on your audience, you have to tailor your message to your audience. When you're speaking to groups or whatever, do you ever get how do you approach different groups of people with telling your message or trying to get your point across?
As of right now, I'm focusing on children who are in foster care, foster parents, and different agencies. I'm still relatively new in the whole motivational speaking world. I have met with a couple agencies that are local, CASA, DSS, Kids Peace, and I've done presentations. I've spoken to foster parents, explained to them from now an adult standpoint of what the children are going through. I've spoken to the kids at Kids Peace and just said, listen, it's okay to be angry. I understand what you're feeling. And the caseworkers, I explain to them, what the kids will be going through and how to relate to them more. Because the main thing is they're afraid. Like I said before, with me, you got pulled from your home. You're in a stranger's possession. They really control everything you're doing right now, and so you don't understand what's going on, and that fight or flight instinct kicks in. And so I explain to them how to relate to them and how to break down those walls so we can get to the heart of the issue.
And I imagine, speaking from experience, that you can help allay the fears of these kids. I imagine there's a lot of fear. Kids are
of course.
scared. I imagine. And seeing you're a big guy, youthful appearance, you got some ink, you can obviously tell that you're not you can walk the walk, and just listening to
And I think
to me that would be helpful, especially if you're counseling kids in foster care.
Absolutely.
It's easier to believe you, or you could probably be more, make a better contact than some, suit behind a desk in the social services office type.
Exactly.
Thing, Oh, we have a caller. Caller, go ahead, please.
Good morning. I also was growing up. I was raised in foster care. Both my parents had been alcoholics. 1 to 12 children. We were split up. I was raised with one brother and one sister. Some of the foster care is good. Some of the families are good. Some are not. And I had the misfortune of being in a family that was not. And I was subjected to many years of physical, verbal, and emotional abuse. And I can understand the pain that you're going through, because I know I still feel that pain yet, and I'm up in years. But I feel my faith really helped me a lot with the things that happened. And I remember too, later on in my adult life, my older sister had said to me a number of times, "You don't know how I kept my sanity in that house, because what was done to me was not done to them, to my brother or my sister." And I don't know why my foster mother talked me out, with what she did. But one of the things I used to say to myself as I was growing up, if I ever get married and have children, I wanted this circle to be broken. Because too often when you are subjected to that, you become that. And that's a decision you have to make. It's not an easy one. But like I said, my faith really helped me a lot. And like I said, started saying, if I got married, had children, I did not want to do to them what was done to me. And there was times that, I got very angry because, I did have contact with my parents. And I remember one time something that my father had said to me that got me extremely angry. And I didn't trust myself near my younger children. They were home they weren't in school yet. And I remember calling a close friend and talking with her, and going over to her house, and we talked more, and then she had me go for a walk where she watched the children. But when you go through these kind of things, and when you feel that anger, it's good. You really just got to, to talk to somebody, and you really got to reach out to the help. And there is help available. But some of the homes, foster homes, are really good ones. Some of them are not, and I really feel that they really got to be, they got to be checked out more.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I agree completely. And, I've been in the same unfortunate circumstance that you've been in, where I've been in some terrible homes as well, where you could tell you were nothing more than a paycheck. And, I thank you for sharing your story. And as we can both relate, we understand that, unfortunately, some of the downfalls of foster care. And that's why I decided to do what I did. The basis of my motivational speaking is called Pain with a Purpose. As she just explained, there's a lot of pain for what you go through with this. And, as she did, we decided to not be victims. She went ahead and she said, okay, listen, my kids are never going to experience what I had to experience, and I'm doing what I'm doing because I always felt, even though I went through all this, everything happens for a reason. You may not understand what the reason is at the exact time, but everything does happen for a reason. And I now realized that I had to go through all of that so I can help someone else. As we were saying earlier, there's a relatability. How can someone in a suit tell a kid, what they're experiencing from what they've read in a textbook? And that's why I'm so unique. I bring a perspective that I lived it. I know exactly what you're going through. I know of exactly what you've experienced.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's, and, what you're doing is really great, and I'm glad that you are doing it. Yeah. And, if there's other people listening who have experienced something like that or going through it now, you can get help. And, like I said, too, before, you get the anger. And one of the things, like I said, my faith really helped me a lot. And it's not always easy to do, to make the decision you do, because, like I said, you have the anger there.
Yeah.
But you have to, like I was telling, like that happened with my, I didn't trust myself around my children when I was so angry. Yeah. And I did not want to hurt them because I thought they would be the victim then too, And, I was fortunate I did have some good friends that I could talk to. And I remember a neighbor who lived a couple of houses away from me. And I remember her kindness towards me, because she knew what was going on there. And, but there is help available. And what you're doing is a great thing.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing. And that means a lot. So,
yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we have to head to break, but thank you for your message. Tuesday morning shows here.
Have you heard in from him at all? Or?
No, I
hope he's all right.
I got engaged in talking with our guest during the break. I should have texted him. He's probably sleeping in or something. I don't know. But we talked last night. I don't understand it. So he remembered it was Tuesday. So
Maybe
well.
Sometimes that snooze button is just too easy to hit.
Too tempting, yeah. Or who knows? Kick the plug out of the wall by accident or something. Who knows? But we are here in the studio with Michael Oliveri. And Michael, how can people get a hold of you?
They can either call me. My telephone number is 845-742-3481. Or my website is choose, CHOOSE, ODC.com.
ODC is, I can read the monogram on your shirt.
Yeah, it stands for Oliveri Development and Consulting.
There you go. Mm-hmm. So choose ODC?
Yep, chooseodc.com.
All right. Now, I had something I wanted to ask you, but I don't want to jump ahead, but you just told me a great story about something that happened to you recently.
Yes. I did my first speech in front of a group of students at Bartlett High School in Massachusetts. It was over 200 kids, and they were celebrating Diversity Week. So they asked me to come and speak, and basically I told my life story. I explained everything that I've gone through because there was a lot of kids in the audience that could relate. and it was the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. The kids welcomed me, and I guess throughout my presentation I created a hero-villain dynamic between myself and my stepfather. So whenever I did something like revenge, so to say, against him, they cheered. Like they loved it.
Yeah,
they loved
well,
every moment of it.
That's relatable,
Yes.
I'm sure. So,
And at the very end, I left a QA session, and one kid asked, he said, before everyone gets into more serious stuff, I just wanted to know if I could have a hug. And so I've said, of course, and he came on stage, I gave him a hug, and that created a chain reaction where I just had almost 50 kids just come up and give me hugs and just thank them for sharing my story. And they, I gave them that relatability that we talked about earlier, that, I'm someone who was in their shoes, I understand, and I overcame, so they can too.
that's a powerful message that kids in high school need to hear.
Yeah, and that's what I'm attempting to do here.
I mean, I don't know statistics or anything, but guarantee there were several kids out of 200 kids in high school. I'm sure there were several kids who have had rough or were in rough situations that you're directly relatable to, and
Sure.
hopefully, it helps.
In addition to the foster care that I have that relatability, I was also bullied as a kid. I'm an overweight person now. I was a chubby kid in school, so I got made fun of my weight. I was poor, so I constantly got made fun of my clothes, my attire. I couldn't afford haircuts, so I was kind of shabby looking. So I got picked on a lot, and now cyberbullying and just bullying in general.
It's unbelievable, the pressure.
Mm-hmm. And
kids are taking their own lives. Teen suicide from cyberbullying and
yeah, but they feel
regular good old fashioned bullying. I guess playground bullying.
Yeah, they feel hopeless. They're in a world right now. They're surrounded by people that are picking on them. They don't see a way out of it, and unfortunately, to them, sometimes the only way is, God forbid, but it's suicide. And so what I'm trying to do is tell them, listen, you, not to quote the Bible, you kind of go through the valley of darkness. It doesn't mean you have to stay there, but you're just in a temporary place where things might be bad, but it doesn't define who you are, and you're going to get through it. And it's just, it's that accountability of here was someone who is experiencing what I'm experiencing right now, and they did it. They got through it. And that's what I try to relay to these kids.
Yeah, to me, that getting the message across that, 15-year-old kid, this is such a small part of your overall life. When you're 60, looking back,
It's a blip.
Yeah, it's a blip.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in that moment, it's like the most overwhelming, horrible thing that there is. And
Sure.
I mean, that's the message you need to get out.
Yeah. And that's what I try to do. And I tell them, listen, this does not define who you are. This isn't going to be your life forever, but you have to make that decision on what you want to do with it. And again, that's the basis, everything of pain with a purpose. Do you want to let this consume your life and become another statistic, or do you want to rise above it and use it as fire to push yourself to do something else?
And that's what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Give people that spark or
Exactly.
help them. Now, can you look back, in your life and come up with a defining moment where you decided not to let the system crush you and
I was asked that
to rise up?
Sure. I was asked that question at Bartlett, and it was really difficult to answer, but I always felt that everything is happening for a reason. That's the only thing I could say, and I just refused to become a statistic.
Now, that's almost a religious or spiritual type thing. Do you think, were you, were any of your fosters, very religious, where you might have gotten?
I was, when we were in the Bronx.
Because there can be some over-the-top religious,
Oh, absolutely. When we were in the Bronx, we went to Mass. I was raised strict, Roman Catholic. The first one was in Italian and the second one was in English, and I sat there for both, even though I had no idea what they were saying. And some of the foster families I went to were spiritual and religious. There was some religious aspect to things, I never asked God why I was going through what I was going through. I just knew I was going through something for a reason. And, my faith has kept me through. I'm a Christian now, and, I do thank God for everything that I've gone through and for keeping me on the path, because it would have been very easy to go off course.
Yeah.
To just say, you know what?
To let the system win.
Yeah, I quit.
You just become a,
Yeah.
drug addict in the system, a criminal.
Yeah, it's
whatever.
it
would have been very easy to get sucked into the void.
And once my wife convinced me that you have a message and you need to get your story out, I started doing research and statistics on it. And especially from a foster care realm, it's disturbing how sad the statistics are. Less than 2% of kids that were in foster care get a bachelor's degree.
Wow.
Less than 2%. 1 in 4 will be homeless. And less than 1% will have achieved a bachelor's degree and have never been to jail. And so I'm that 1%.
Yeah, a small part of 1%.
Yeah. And it's disturbing when you consider that.
What do you think would be the root of that? The cause, just being beat by the system.
Yeah, it's just sheer hopelessness. To look at your situation and say, there is no way out. This is just what's going to become of my life, and it's the giving up. It's not using that pain for good. It's just saying, you know what, this is the hand I was dealt, instead of refusing.
Deal,
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty heady stuff. Not heady. It takes guts or whatever to realize that. As a teenager, being in your position, just realizing that is obviously there's some grain, part of your character that shone through, as a youth that kept you strong or something.
Absolutely.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and
that's you're a hell of a guy. I'm
thank you.
Very impressed. So
and it's the whole basis for me doing what I'm doing. If I had a mentor, or if I had someone that I could look at and say, listen, they were in my shoes and they were able to do it. Who knows? I'm proud of the man I am today, but I think it would have helped to have that kind of, not idol, because I don't want to call it that, but just someone that was in my same predicament that says, okay, wow, they understand because they lived it. As I was telling you earlier, in addition to the abuse that I had to deal with, in addition to the foster care, I've had to deal with tremendous loss. My father died at 17 when I was 17. He had cirrhosis of the liver, from alcoholism. So even though I never knew him, I still lost my father.
Yeah.
So that was difficult. And then my mother passed away when I was 29. She died from AIDS-related complications from her, drug addictions and everything. And then to backtrack a little bit, when I finally got out of foster care, I moved to Onteora High School at the end of 9th grade, and I finally met this one kid, Jason, and he became my best friend. And in addition to becoming my best friend, he was kind of like, I always called him my Jiminy Cricket. He was that voice of reason for everything that I did. And, once we graduated high school, I went to Ulster College, and then I dropped out, because I was like, this isn't for me. And Jason kept pestering me. Mike, you got to go back to school. Mike, you got to go back to school. So I went back to Ulster. I got my associate's degree. Mm-hmm. And literally the day I got my diploma, Jason's like, okay, you got to get your bachelor's degree. You got to get your bachelor's degree.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Had he gone on to, secondary,
oh,
college
yes.
or whatever?
Yeah, Jason was a full-time student at Marist. Actually becoming a doctor was his backup plan. He wanted to be a pilot.
Wow. Not bad.
Yeah. And so he kept pestering me. So I fought him off for a solid decade of going back to school. And then he trapped me. He said, listen, I found a program that's right up your alley. It's all papers and presentations, no tests, no nothing. So I decided to go back to Marist and get my bachelor's degree. And then he came to my job one day and said, I have cancer. and it was devastating because having consistency in my life is not something I'm used to. I've lost plenty of things, and so here was finally something solid that I had. I've had a relationship with this kid. He was my best friend for almost 10 years, and unfortunately he passed away when I was 31. So 31 years old. By the age of 31, I had lost my mother, my father, and my best friend, who was the voice of reason for me.
Spurring you on, the source of strength or motivation.
Yeah, so it was tough.
Yeah,
and
that's I mean,
and again, that's something else I can speak to these kids about, or just anyone in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be a kid, but it's just someone. It's just another topic that I have that I can relate to these.
Yeah. I would imagine a death in the family is a reason for foster care in a lot of situations.
Yeah. Sometimes someone dies and one parent can't handle it.
A parent's incarcerated, which is very, very likely these days.
Yep. When there were times where I was in foster care where my mother and stepfather had broken up. And so, according to the courts, I could go back home. And then my mom basically said, I can't handle him. I don't want him. Yeah, and so I was thrown back in foster care.
That rejection.
That's the rejection, the abandonment, why is this happening to me? And again, that's why I'm trying to do this, to go into these schools, I'm even trying to get into juvenile detention facilities where, their life is gotten to that point where they're in trouble, and just tell them, listen, you can turn it around. This does not have to define you. And I've come up with a saying. It's not mine. There's actually two of them. Whenever someone wants to start something new, or whenever they want to change, they say, okay, I'm going to start Monday, or I'm going to start tomorrow. And so my thing is, no, you don't start Monday, you don't start tomorrow, you start right now. When you want to change something, you do it. You start right now, because you can always come up with excuses. Monday, or I have friends that want to quit smoking, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to start fresh Monday, or I'm going to start fresh when this pack of cigarettes runs out. I'm like, no, you have to start right now. It's and that's how you get over those excuses. No, I'm going to start this right now.
Yeah. Don't never put off till tomorrow what you can do today.
Exactly.
The anti-procrastination thing. Mm-hmm. But Mike, hold on for a moment.
Absolutely.
We have to do our 750 birthday spot. And as always, our birthdays are sponsored by the Boyce Brothers Dairy Milk House, 62 O'Neill Street. And they are gracious enough every day to donate a cow pie, one of their world-famous cow pies, to the birthday recipient. And today, when I open our big, fat birthday folder, it looks a little slim. We only have one. Tuesday, April 18th. Wish a very happy birthday to Elizabeth Finger from your friends and family.
Suspense on who's going to win is killing me.
I know. Yeah. Well, we don't even have to put this in our randomizer, but happy birthday, Elizabeth.
Yes, happy birthday, Elizabeth.
You are the winner of the Boyce Brothers Dairy Milk House cow pie. So go on down to Boyce Brothers and tell them that you are today's birthday winner, and you will get a delicious confection for your birthday.
I'll throw in a few birthdays with some friends and colleagues of mine. Livia Vanover of the local Vanover Dance Caravan. Heidi Eklund-Pyle, she's a casting person over in New Paltz. And Tim Van Etten, one of my lighting and theater colleagues over in Ellenville and New Paltz. He's out that way. Happy birthday, everybody.
Happy birthday.
If you want to get in on the birthday action, send in your birthdays or your friends' birthdays or your enemies' birthdays. Send anybody's birthdays to KCR Birthdays, 82 John Street, Kingston, New York, 12401. 10 days in advance. Write clearly, legibly, big block letters printed if you have to, and include any phonetic pronunciations that might help our hosts out. And and then you'll be eligible for winning the 9-inch ice cream cow pie from Boyce Brothers Dairy Milk House. If you're not from the area and you hear cow pies as things you'll encounter in a field, well, there's the cow pie from the ice cream variety, Boyce Brothers Dairy Milk House. 9-inch cow pie. It's amazing. Instead of a cake, it's a pie. Simple as that. Okay, that's it.
There you go.
Did I sell it?
Can't explain it any better than that.
I just want more names in that folder. So send them in for the price of a stamp or whatever. Or I think you can email them too to kcr921@gmail.com. But it's easier to just have a card in your hand, and there we go.
All right, so we are back. We're joined with Michael joined with
By.
Michael Oliveri. And why don't you give us your contact name and number again?
Sure. My telephone number is 845-742-3481. And the website is chooseodc.com.
Yeah, we would love to see your business take off and
Thank you.
give your message to thousands of kids annually, which would be great.
Yeah, and I'm doing this on a strictly donation basis. I've researched this, and there's some motivational speakers who don't have the experience, who charge $10,000-$15,000 to do this, and I'm simply saying, listen, I understand that schools or agencies have budgets and they have things that they have to work with. I'm doing this on a donation basis.
You'll
If you
work with
can't
the
pay
budget.
me, then you can't pay me. The message is too important to me to hold it hostage to a
Well,
paycheck.
We do have a caller. Caller, go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning. I'd like to make an announcement.
Okay.
Tomorrow, Wednesday, April 19th, the Healthy Lifestyle and Wellness Club, formerly known as the Benecare Club, will meet at the community room in the Hudson Valley Mall, right next to where Penny's used to be. We will have breakfast at 8:30. The speaker will be Will Spooner. He's a substance abuse counselor. He will talk about addictions, their challenges, recognition, and treatment.
Okay. Well, thank you for that announcement.
Thank you.
All right. If you ever need a good speaker, we have one right here. Please give him a call. He'd be probably be happy to address the group. So.
Yes. And thank you for having me on. You know, it's important that this message gets out, and
Absolutely.
not even just if I'm the one delivering it, just the message to kids today that there is hope out there. There is people who understand what you're going through, and there's people out there that are willing to help.
And you are one of them.
And I am one of them.
Yeah. Now, have you, given your brochure to the county agency, not DSS or the Youth Services Bureau or whatever?
I have reached out to a couple of them, emails and sending them out. Haven't heard any responses yet, but it's a government agency, so things take time.
Take a long time.
Yep, you got to get approval. You got to go up the chain line to get
Sure.
something. So,
But I imagine like boys and girls clubs, that type of thing. Might be good.
yeah, I've sent emails out constantly, and I'm starting to mail out the brochures as I get them,
Yeah.
and mail them out to these different agencies. And I've even just picked up the phone and called a couple of them.
Yeah.
There seems to be a little hesitancy with things. I'm not 100% sure why. Like I said, I'm new to this venue, so
Yeah.
I'm still getting my feet a little wet.
Well, that's what you got to do. You gotta keep, pounding the pavement
Yep.
and, whatever.
Yeah, I'm staying optimistic. I'm not going to let,
Well, obviously you're an optimistic
yeah,
person.
I have to be.
If the last 30 years hasn't beaten the optimism out of you, I don't think,
Nope.
this will. So.
No, and I have a great support system. My wife has been there with me the entire time, and as I said, I started out being a business consultant. I was helping small mom and pop stores get started or operate more efficiently, and things were kind of stagnant. And as I said before, she was the one that said, you have a message, you need to get it out there. And so with her support, we went up to Sullivan County and got my foster care records, which was an eye-opening experience, to say the least. And through that, I actually had the opportunity to remember and see some of the foster families that I lived with. And the one that I touched on earlier that worked for IBM, I actually reached out. And he lives in Texas, and he comes back to New York every other year. So the next time he comes back, we're going to meet up.
Try to get together? Oh, that's cool.
And the very last foster family I was with them the longest. And they were very impactful on my life. It was the same situation. I wasn't her foster child. I was her child, and she had a daughter.
Yeah.
I wasn't her daughter's foster brother. I was her brother. And I got their contact information, and actually there was an article written from the Times Herald Record about what I did, and my foster sister Shanna, she saw it, and she contacted me on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so we got together, and we had pictures and just caught up, and it was a great time. And they actually, both of them now, the mother, and she's retired, but and Shanna both do, they're social workers.
Okay, wow. Huh.
Yeah, and ironically, it's just I thought it was ironic that they were with me and then they became social
well,
workers
obviously
afterwards.
there's something in them with that. Social worker is a tough love.
Oh, it's brutal.
Tough love type job. You're never going to get rich doing it, and you a lot of heartache. But
Yep.
it's one. You're not. Yeah, you're doing that out of a deeper sense of service. There's
Exactly.
way easier ways to earn a living. To go through with that. That's
Yeah.
That's
So it was nice. It was great to touch base with them again, and have that interaction with people who had an impactful
yeah.
meaning on my life growing up.
And not that you're like want to say thank you, not to make it sound like corny, but obviously they meant something to you enough to search them out of after all these years.
Yeah.
That's that's got to make them feel good that they've
Absolutely.
helped you however long ago that was. So
Yeah, and as the lady touched on earlier, there are bad families and there's good families, and a good family should be recognized and they should be commended for the phenomenal job that they do.
yeah, well they helped maybe helped steer you in a positive direction.
Absolutely.
So.
I say.
Cool. Well,
So
Michael, we
you're
have to head to
an
break.
outstanding power of example in that it's letting people know they have a choice on what actions and behaviors they choose to embody themselves. And as the caller said, sometimes people they wind up passing those things on, and if you can break the cycle, and that you do get to tell your story to large groups, and you do question and answer parts later on, and often you'll be hit with something that rewards you back. And just getting the stuff out of your system that if you held on to it for so long, it would just be toxic. Being able to let others know that they're not alone in it at the same time, you get a new foster family with every audience in a way. Like everybody who will accept you is like I'm with you there.
Absolutely. And the one presentation that I did at Bartlett, it was the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. I walked away with such a sense of just overwhelming joy that I was able to share my story and not, I don't want to say touch, but for lack of a better term, touch these
sure,
lives.
you may have.
I had kids come up to me and say thank you so much. I see myself in you. I've had kids send me messages on Facebook, hey, this is the situation I'm going through. You're the only one I feel like I can reach out to because you understand. So to be able to help someone else is the whole purpose of this.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it is pain with a purpose. I went through everything I had to go through so I can now help someone else.
Yep. Well, it's a great message, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Michael, all right.
All right, you can visit his website at chooseodc.com. All right, we're at the top of the hour here, and electrolysis, a leader in electrolysis services for over 30 years.